Clayson, if you could add some insight into this. So SARS was not involved in this entire matter. We know that the South African Police Service was, because it was a blue light brigade. The South African Air Force must have known about it, well, operationally at least, because there was an aircraft that was landing at Waterkloof Air Force. So there's so many different links to this entire story. How come SARS was not invited, but yet SAPS was for the escort? I mean, why weren't questions being asked along the trail to get the plane on to our Waterkloof military Air Force base?
Let me give South Africans an assurance through you that all the affected departments, from the Department of International Relations to Home Affairs to SARS to Defense to the police, all the affected departments as we speak are instituting extensive investigations to look at their roles, the officials from those particular departments, what role did they play, why were they there or not there, and what led to that, so that we can get to the bottom of this whole thing and find the people who flouted the laws, the policies, the regulations of government. Those people will be dealt with in terms of the law. So all those questions that you are raising are now the subject of investigations by all these departments that I've referred to.
Have you engaged with the Indian High Commission over the last few days, and what recourse is going to be taken with the Indian High Commission, if any at all?
Well, one of the things that we've just done, in fact, I was in a discussion now at the department with the Indian High Commissioner. We've already conveyed to him as the department that we are not pleased in the manner in which this whole thing was managed by their High Commission. We are not pleased with the way it was relayed, it was managed and handled. That's a matter that we'll be taking further through diplomatic channels. But at the moment, our focus is really to deal with how government is going to be responding to what has happened here through all these investigations. The issue of the Indian High Commission will be handled through diplomatic channels.
Again, Clayson, I'd like to go back to that press release, as I mentioned, the one that was released on the 30th of April, and it was sent from your office saying that the Defence Ministry had actually approved this. Some would argue that it was pointing of fingers to a different department to move the attention away from DIRCO, and DIRCO has now already said, as we've mentioned, that it is taking part blame for this because of the Chief of State Protocol being suspended at this point. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
You know, was there finger pointing initially to try and shift blame to the Defence Ministry?
I know that it's a fun thing for journalists and the media to try and make people fight, but I can assure you there's no fight here. There's no finger pointing at anyone. The reality is flight clearances were secured for this plane to land, and that clearance can only be issued by the people at Defence, and that's what we're talking about. It's now confirmed.
But the Department of Defence...
Listen,
okay.
Hang on.
All right.
Now hang on. Flight clearances were secured, and there's a confirmation now from Defence, and that's what we were saying in that initial statement. We are now past the fact that we know that there was a flight clearance that was issued. We are now looking for what led to this being issued. What circumstances led to the flight clearance being issued? Who played which role from which department? That is why all the affected departments are investigating this matter extensively. There's no finger pointing, there's no fight. We want government.
Okay, Clayson, but I ask this because the Defence Ministry, and we've spoken to them extensively over the past week here on eNCA, and they have initially been saying that they had nothing to do with this. The Minister of Defence came out today, a short while ago, and saying that they rejected the request for assistance for clearance, but yet then DIRCO releases a press statement that says it was issued by the Defence Department, saying that clearance was offered and talking about transporting Indian government ministers. So that's where the big question comes in, and this is why we asked the question as to whether there was some kind of whitewashing along the road.
Yeah, you see, if you were to follow logic and also listen to the simple English that the Department of Defense used today, you will have acknowledged or seen or noticed that in their statement they confirm that flight clearances was issued for this plane to land. Flight clearances can only be issued by them. As to why a certain official from DIRCO interacted with them to instruct or beg or apply for that clearance to be issued is a subject of an investigation. So it's very clear that the flight clearances were issued by Defence. Now we're looking at who did what leading to that clearance being issued. That's the issue.
Absolutely. Okay, so we also know that the Defence Ministry has said now that the clearance is going to be rescinded and the aircraft is going to be removed from the Air Force Waterkloof base. What is your response to this as DIRCO, and how is this going to change your situation going forward?
We were part of the discussions yesterday where a decision was taken that those flight clearances have to be withdrawn, or that clearance has to be rescinded. We were part of that discussion. We actually advocated that it has to be withdrawn because clearly there was no executive approval for this thing to happen in the first place, hence the investigation. So we participated in the discussions that led to that decision to withdraw those so that that plane can leave the Waterkloof Air Base, as well as ensuring that the people who are going to exit, who came through that airport, will not exit from that airport.
Clayson, was the presidency in any way involved with discussions with the people that came into South Africa earlier this week? Do we have that kind of detail?
I can tell South Africans now, without any fear of contradiction, the president or the presidency as an office was not consulted, was not involved. They did not give an instruction, no approval for this thing to happen. Neither did the Minister of International Relations nor the Minister of Defense. This matter was handled at the level of officials as delegated, and that is why there's an investigation to find out which official did what that led to the flight clearance being approved or granted. There was no presidency instruction, no approval granted on this.
You can confirm that the presidency didn't in any way discuss anything with the Indian High Commission or any dignitary that came into South Africa, or even the Gupta family, prior to the saga playing out?
I shall say it again and confirm to you and South Africans that there was no instruction, no approval granted from the presidency, no interaction between the presidency with the Indian High Commission, absolutely not.
Clayson, with regards to South African ministers that were invited to the Gupta wedding, could you give us insight into that?
Say that again?
With regards to the invites, any ministers that have been invited, because we know that government officials were on the guest list. Could you confirm those names for us?
Oh no, I wouldn't know. This is a wedding, it's a private matter, and the people who are getting married, I'm sure, would have decided on the guest list. Now, I don't know who they've decided to invite, whether it's ministers or private individuals. I have no information on that. I mean, it's a private wedding. I'm sure they've invited friends and family and people that they'd like to see at the wedding, but I don't know who they've invited.
As the minister in the presidency says, Collins Shabane reiterated that this is a very serious matter. As you've also reiterated, an investigation is currently underway. When will we hear details on exactly what has been playing out and who is involved in this matter? And I'm sure this needs to happen very soon.
Yes, no, indeed. The minister is correct. Government views this incident in a very serious light. That is why all the departments that I've referred to, from DIRCO to Defense to Home Affairs to SARS to the police, are all currently, as we speak, investigating their role and their officials who played some role in this, so that we can know who flouted government regulation, laws and policies. And those people, as we have said before, will be dealt with in terms of the law, because you can't have a civilian aircraft landing at a military facility in the manner that this was done.
All right, Clayson, thank you very much for your insight and spending time with us here on eNCA. Much appreciated for your time and the detail that you've given to this very complex story. We appreciate your time. Clayson Monyela from DIRCO joining us from our studios in Pretoria. We're going to a very short break. When we return, more detail on the Gupta debacle that is playing out, and we also take a look to see how manufacturing in South Africa is doing. So don't you go anywhere.
News that moves. eNCA.com.